Happy Sunday. I'm the Grace Strega, and I'm here to give you your daily collective read for today, Sunday, January 7th, 2024. What do we have coming through in the cards for today? May I please have the first 5 cards in our 5-card spread? First card, we are starting our day off with today is King of Cups. Energy in its reversal. I'm not necessarily surprised to see this. I told you guys, I did warn that something about the circumstances and situations right now have been somewhat triggering. And I have to stress that some of that trigger is feeling like there's a bit more weight on the masculine energy right now, specifically from the emotional center. Bearing in mind, this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. What are we seeing right now for the masculine energy in the divine union frequency? The ability to be patient, the ability to hold a space or leave one's own heart open, as it were, around circumstances and situations where you don't necessarily have a secure or established outcome is something that feels very difficult for the masculine energy. This is like emotional, energetic, spiritual weightlifting, as it were, because this is almost the ability. It's not something that feels so much like the masculine can put force on something so much as it is a moment of having to hold space for it. And even now we see that for the energy, even in the divine union frequency, this is causing a level or degree of feeling somewhat emotionally fragile right now. It could even feel somewhat emotionally triggering. Masculine energy, if you are in this divine union frequency right now, I want you to be putting a lot of focus and concentration on working on maintaining a point of emotional balance. You can potentially find that through observation of how you are feeling, allowing oneself to embody it. Not necessarily, I have to stress this, not letting yourself get reactive on that feeling, but more just allowing oneself to observe and feel those feelings is almost an energetic or spiritual strength test, because in a way you're like expanding and broadening your own emotional capacity right now. For the energy in the divine union, this is specifically something that we see that the masculine energy set about to do. The observation of something being emotionally or spiritually difficult was a path that we saw prior to the Mercury retrograde begin, that the masculine set themselves on, but all for a way and space to be able to facilitate deeper emotional healing. And we're seeing that for a lot of masculine energy right now, even in the divine union frequency, that observation of something potentially having to hurt for it to heal may be coming through a lot today. There could be some feelings, again, of heartache, of longing coming through right now. I need to stress also, if this is a moment that you have some unhealthy coping mechanisms, there may be that moment of feeling that indulgence point coming in. So I want you to be very mindful of that as well today, especially for the masculine energy. Feminine energy, this feeling or seeing masculine in this modality right now may also be creating a bit of a reflection point for you as well. And I'm sure we'll get more clarity as to what is happening here in just a moment as we pull some more of these cards, specifically due to the fact that this is feminine energy that may be seeing and feeling and experiencing potentially a masculine that is feeling an overwhelm or overabundance of energy that may be hard for the masculine to communicate, or, and I have to stress this may somehow lead to something that feels a bit more akin to potentially some kind of unproductive or unpositive outburst happening today in relation to this. That's why I'm stressing. The last time we did a reading, I warned you there was some triggering energy around some things right now. Not allowing oneself to move from a state or space of being triggered, but more embodying how you're feeling, observing how you're feeling prior to determining how to move forward with it is going to be the watchword today, specifically for masculine energy. Bearing in mind that this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. Feminine, this may be a call right now, if in the divine union frequency, of allowing the masculine the space to have this emotionality. Giving the masculine energy a moment to be able to analyze and observe their feelings today is going to be very important, because you may be seeing and experiencing something on the part of the feminine that may feel like the masculine is feeling a little bit more triggered today. Masculine and feminine energy coming into the divine union frequency. This is also almost showing to a certain extent that there's almost something that may feel a little bit of akin to like an emotional or spiritual stress test that the masculine energy may be potentially feeling right now as they're moving into divine union. So feminine, having that opportunity right now of being empathetic for the position that we see the masculine in right now is also very important, specifically because we are seeing that for a lot of the masculine energy right now, specifically the energy trying to come into divine union, this observation of having to relinquish some karmic energy that may be trying or articulating or amplifying to masculine right now, a desire or need to want to like facilitate fast healing, is creating a moment for masculine that may be feeling very emotionally difficult, because it's almost masculine feeling like their emotional triggers are being potentially sprung around some of these outside circumstances or situations. I amplified the fact that for a lot of the masculine energy right now trying to move into divine union, there's this feeling of potentially something coming towards the masculine, which is like right thing, wrong time. Potentially masculine even feeling the weight of frustration of energy that's moving towards the masculine right now, wanting to heal, wanting potentially to facilitate a healing that the masculine may have let themselves, would have been incredibly open to prior to this moment. But that's the thing. It's the timing of something that feels like it is misaligned. It feels like it is off. And it is that amplification right now, to a certain extent, of a masculine either recognizing an energy that is choosing the worst moment, something that doesn't feel like it's in the benefit of the masculine to try to heal right now, or feeling to a certain extent that masculine needs to like surrender that energy or put it aside, is creating potentially a lot of emotional flux for the masculine right now, because it's that moment of masculine almost feeling that overwhelm of having to again disappoint some energy as they continue forward in their intention, in their purpose. So we see even now for the feminine energy that's working with the masculine, seeing masculine in this modality right now may be feeling very triggering, because this could be very fraught territory for energy right now trying to come into divine union, because this is almost feminine energy that may be feeling like, and again, this is why communication needs to be so important and key right now. Making sure that this emotionality isn't misunderstood as someone potentially feeling like they're changing or they're vacillating on their intent and purposes, as opposed to going through something that is very emotionally overwhelming. That articulation point, the ability to communicate that right now, is going to be very key. Masculine and feminine in separation right now, this is why we see a lot of the energy is navigating some situations and circumstances that may feel like they are very emotionally fraught. We observed, especially for a lot of the masculine energy over the last few days, there was something about feminine opening up, amplifying their own perception on something that may have created something that feels akin to an emotional wound to you to a certain extent. Because again, either this is a moment or modality for masculine energy where seeing or hearing something that the feminine is bringing forth to you may feel like it is something that feels like a deeper emotional wound. It may feel like a deeper emotional hurt. And we see that even for a lot of the energy right now that's trying to struggle to articulate, to take accountability, and to try to communicate to feminine what one's true intentions are, why this feels like such a difficult area, because it is almost requiring one to reach a deepened level of vulnerability, a deeper emotional vulnerability and openness in terms of articulating what it is that you desire at this time, that feels overwhelming. It feels triggering. It creates a space where you may feel that anxiety of the rejection that may come in opening up to that capacity. While for other parts, but again, observing that, even observing that right now, masculine, and your own emotions towards that ability to be open, what we actually see here to a certain extent is almost a moment that is allowing this to be a personal moment of emotional healing, because this is requiring that internal path work for the masculine at this time to reach a deepened level of vulnerability through the act of emotional expression. Or we are seeing here, and this is going to feel like more difficult path work, if this is masculine that is now in separation due to a reactivity point, due to already experiencing something where one allowed the emotional overwhelm to cause a trigger, to amplify the trigger. And I almost warned that this was something that was potentially coming through over the last few days, making sure that one was not reacting and amplifying a trigger point so much as using it to facilitate deeper healing. This may be a feeling right now of masculine being in isolation in some way or space and feeling that inability to be able to immediately or emotionally articulate how you're feeling right now. Maybe something that is feeling like a lot of that emotional work that you're doing in separation right now. And I need to stress for a lot of the masculine energy in this modality, make sure that you're putting care of the self on your highest priority right now. Make sure that you're not falling into unhealthy coping mechanisms, but instead allowing oneself to almost move into that self-care moment is going to be really important right now. Feminine energy and separation. This is why we see a lot of this feminine energy is potentially in separation right now, especially if this came from a moment or state where not only did feminine feel like masculine was not showing an ability to prioritize a single feminine energy over the energies around them at this point, especially if this was a separation that was caused as you were moving into divine union. But this is why we see to a certain extent that feminine is keeping a little bit of distance right now, especially if there was something about feminine trying to speak openly, trying to articulate, trying to ask masculine what it is that masculine wants. This is either potentially feminine that is in separation right now because the masculine energy either potentially refused to articulate upon that, which may have led to the feminine trying to ascertain it through the masculine's actions. And if again, that may have led to masculine having a point of reactivity instead of using that to facilitate healing, then we see that this is why we feel like the feminine is almost again navigating their own trigger in that feeling of frustration around masculine energy, not being able to navigate vulnerable territory that requires a level or degree of emotional openness in order to facilitate and maintain divine union. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now, second card in our 5-card spread, healing. This card should look familiar because it was all over our last reading, but we see here that this is that moment, and this is why we see that for a lot of energy right now, this could be feeling like a point of emotional overwhelm, because this is that moment or desire. If a trigger was hit, if you didn't take what I told you, if you didn't hear what I told you, not that you didn't take what I told you, but if that trigger that was actually hit, because we saw that in the last reading, the possibility for triggers to be hit, that sensitivity was very amplified. It was all set, even for the energy in divine union. If that is something where the trigger was already hit and there was that reactivity point, we see here that this is almost that moment that is the desire for healing. That like slow down on the crest of the wave is now coming in. The desire to come back, the desire to heal, the desire to fix something. Now, masculine and feminine energy in divine union, even now we are seeing that this is a moment that is very difficult for a lot of the masculine energy, even in the vibration of the divine union frequency. It could be feeling like a lot of emotional overwhelm coming through today. But it's a positive, productive space because this is potentially masculine energy, if in divine union, that is learning the gift from the feminine, that when you feel that overwhelm, you don't need to act on it. That sometimes just feeling the overwhelm, the emotional overwhelm, allowing oneself to just ride that wave out, if you will, to be patient through that wave, to just allow yourself to feel what you're feeling. There's catharsis on the other side of that. There's catharsis. There's a cathartic wave that can come through in allowing that expression of overwhelm, because that moment of overwhelm, it's the moment that you observe it and say to yourself, not just what I'm feeling, but wow, I feel so much right now. My ability to feel so much almost feels like I cannot contain it. It is that moment that allows the amplification in recognizing that that ability to like drop your armor, your ability just to allow yourself to feel those things is effectively that healing gift coming through. And it does feel, for a lot of the masculine energy right now, rather overwhelming, even if you're in the divine union frequency. If in the divine union frequency, if you are finding a state or space where it is like amplifying your ability to let your guard down, having that be that magnification point, even now, it's that possibility of feeling like, again, that healing coming through, but also that bittersweet feeling of like the pain. It's going to feel like, again, I think I was describing that like tight fist recently, that clench. This is that moment that feels like that opening up. That is that point of release. That is that point of healing that's being facilitated. Feminine, you may be seeing this if you're in the divine union frequency on the part of a masculine, that you feel again is almost coming through with an effusiveness of their own emotionality and almost being able to find, again, a point where they're either feeling so much that it's hard for them to articulate upon it, or potentially almost like there may even be, if this moment, if there was something where the masculine is trying to amplify, if there was something about a trigger getting hit over the last few days, this is almost masculine, almost amplifying their own accountability and saying, it's hard for me because I feel so much about you. I feel so much about this connection that sometimes I put that in the wrong spaces or places. This is, again, feminine seeing a masculine that is very much doing that path work on allowing even those moments where they feel a trigger hit as a point of being able to facilitate deeper healing. That's further amplification of feminine in feeling a sense or an experience of masculine that is allowing for their own healing, because this is, again, a masculine, if in the divine union frequency, that is the problem isn't that they don't feel anything for the feminine, it's that they feel so much. It's so much. It's like it feels so much. It's almost hard for the masculine to put into words. Seeing masculine in that modality, even in this state, helps the feminine, because that's that masculine that is almost, again, showing via word, deed, or action how much they care, how important the divine union frequency is, and how much the masculine is working to maintain it, even through that point of emotional overwhelm. Masculine and feminine coming into the divine union frequency right now, this ability to surrender, this ability, as I said, to surrender the outcome, to surrender that point, to allow and recognize. For a lot of masculine energy right now, there is this point of understanding that's happening around circumstances or situations. You may be feeling as you're moving into divine union right now, masculine, that suddenly there's energies around you that want to heal. This observation point in feeling like you almost have to push that aside right now, postpone some of that healing, is almost showing the masculine energy, even at this moment, that there is closure that you're reaching around some of those unhealed karmic situations. The closure is coming about to a certain extent in the sense of, again, an abandonment of needing that outside validation to close something. It's that recognition point for a lot of the masculine energy right now, moving into the divine union frequency. Closure is not something that you get from outside energy. Typically, if you're moving towards an energy for closure, it's really more of an opening. And we see that for a lot of the masculine energy right now, that point of understanding, that point of recognition, and again, the amplification of seeing how the energy is responding and reacting to a masculine that is effectively saying in some way, shape, or form, I would like to heal something too, but that healing is not the prioritization that I have right now, that there's something else that requires that prioritization point, and that's moving into divine union. Even now, it's almost feeling bittersweet, because it's that point of masculine recognizing to a certain extent the energy that is now taking into account where they find this energy and realizing that even that observation is facilitating healing. Versus masculine seeing some energy right now that it's almost feeling like if the masculine isn't able to prioritize that energy, move out of divine union, then it feels like that healing was actually conditional. Like it wasn't something about healing for the sake of healing, but almost that point of like recognizing or feeling that energy of saying like now or never quality to something that is almost amplifying again to masculine, that sense of heart opening that's also, again, somewhat overwhelming, because it's that observation of something for what it truly is that is amplifying and affirming the decisions that the masculine is moving forward right now of coming into divine union. Feminine, seeing a masculine energy that's not only experiencing this right now, but almost doing that emotional unpacking with you, almost again amplifying in some way, shape, or form that this isn't necessarily easy, that as they move further into the divine union energy, that point of coming into personal closure around circumstances from the past that they may have felt more emotionally invested in, but now they're looking at less as something that they want to rebuild something and more something they have to heal from, is further amplification that this energy is in fact also committed to the path of moving into the divine union frequency. Masculine and feminine, if in separation right now, this is that moment or that modality wherein the desire to heal something is now potentially rising to the surface for a lot of this energy right now. And this is the problem potentially that is happening. Feminine, you may be seeing right now a lot of masculine energy that is trying to come back towards you right now, especially if there are some moments or circumstances that led to separation recently wherein it appeared that the masculine was not showing some ability to prioritize your needs as it relates to the needs of outside energy around you at this time. We even see that for a lot of the feminine energy, as soon as we came out of this Mercury retrograde period, it almost led to an immediate articulation to masculine that such is the case. If this was a masculine whose actions weren't matching their intentionality or their words, we see that feminine came right out, and this is a masculine was trying to move back towards feminine, acting as if nothing had happened. This is feminine that was almost going to articulate to the masculine exactly why there is this point of trepidation in allowing the masculine to come back into union with feminine energy. Because this is a feminine that's almost trying to amplify to masculine that like divine union is not a revolving door. You can't come in and out of divine union. You have to focus on it. You have to nurture it. You have to grow it. You can touch it once, but you can't pop back into it again and again. Once you lose it, you lose it. You have to be focused on maintaining the frequency. You have to show an ability to hold the note, as it were. For some of the feminine energy right now, that observation point is potentially coming and seeing some masculine energy that even if there was a trigger that was hit over the last few days, feminine energy almost amplifying to masculine what they were seeing that needs healing, the path forward that's actually allowing potentially some of these energies to come back into healing. The possibility is here so much as that is being reflected in masculine observing to see if masculine shows an ability of taking accountability for not just potentially something that wasn't feeling like the masculine was prioritizing the feminine, but also in masculine potentially getting reactive in feminine articulating that to a masculine. So even now we see that feminine's almost leaving that karmic pathway open for some masculine energy to come back into healing right now, especially if these were circumstances and situations where masculine may have not necessarily seen something clearly. This is almost coming through as a moment of feminine being like, I am showing you something now so that you can see it. This is giving that like almost like that additional chance, if you will, by saying, now that I've articulated it, if you recognize it, now you can see that that's something that you can avoid and focus on. Feminine is almost allowing that point right now for masculine to come forward in that point of healing to recognize if the masculine can observe what needs to be amended. And that has to do with potentially the feminine feeling to a certain extent that something potentially recently occurred wherein the masculine did not prioritize the needs of the feminine or the divine union over the outside energy. The rest of the feminine energy right now, if this is a moment where we are seeing that this is masculine that is coming into a state or space of denial in terms of what the feminine has articulated to them, refusing to hear it, or potentially almost using it as a point of further reactivity and volatility as opposed to trying to talk about how to come into healing. This is why we see that this is almost encouraging and furthering the point of separation, because this is now feminine looking at a masculine and feeling like the masculine energy lacks a point of emotional balance or emotional observation that is required to come into divine union, wherein we see that this is feminine energy that's now working on the path to heal from a masculine. And that's where we see that this isn't necessarily leading to a space of productivity so much as feminine looking and identifying what they are now looking at as an energy that they karmically feel closeness to, but isn't able to maintain their enough emotional balance to be able to facilitate and promote and encourage long-term karmic healing on in relation to divine union. Then that's a feminine energy that is almost, again, looking at the masculine with a layered degree of empathy, but almost immediately trying to start to facilitate healing from that energy. Masculine, if you are in separation right now, you could be experiencing a moment that, again, it feels like a point of emotional overwhelm. Feminine may have shown you something or said something to you that may have triggered you over the last few days. And even now we see that for some of the masculine energy, utilizing that not as a point of recrimination, but a point of observation, realizing that the feminine wasn't saying that to officially create a fight or conflict between you, but more feminine, almost amplifying what they were seeing that needed some point of course correction to allow for the ability of divine union to take place. For the masculine energy that is working through that right now, this is almost immediately getting you back on the course for healing, because it is through that observation of the expression of looking at something that you may have allowed oneself to feel an emotional overwhelm on that wasn't necessarily positive or productive, but recognizing and receiving what feminine is giving you now as a point of observation, that fertile ground through which to build something better, is allowing something here that feels like something of catharsis, of healing, coming through around situations and circumstances. For other parts of masculine energy right now in separation, if this is a moment wherein you took that observation point, you took something that feminine told you, and instead of embodying and recognizing what that was, instead taking it as something that allowed for further reactivity, that almost allowed for further amplification of something, this is that moment that we see to a certain extent that this is potentially masculine energy that is going further into solitude right now, feeling like you are trying to emotionally heal from something. And that is that moment that, again, that point of even now in healing, if in separation, that sense of accountability is almost coming through to a certain extent, but it may be feeling more like a point of personal catharsis, because, again, one of the things that we see that a lot of the masculine energy and separation is being challenged with right now is the observation of, again, recognizing something that the feminine is trying to bring forth right now. And even in that point or space of denial, observing that now in the self, seeing something the feminine brought forth is almost creating a state or space that is almost allowing you to embody and recognize that going forward or heal it. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now, third card in our 5-card spread for today is, this all came from the feminine speaking their truth, being open. Not, again, and I think that this is really important right now. For a lot of the feminine energy in separation right now, what we are effectively seeing and recognizing to a certain extent is a point that a lot of the feminine energy in separation, the reason that we see that the feminine is utilizing this as a moment of clarification is feminine is almost trying to use their power of words to make sure that they're not necessarily being misunderstood on the part of the masculine. This is a feminine energy, especially if anything was coming from a point of having some kind of trigger sprung from something that the feminine articulated or said to the masculine right now. This is feminine even in separation, trying to come into a point of deep clarity. This is why feminine is almost leaving the opportunity for some positive bridge here to form with any masculine energy, wherein they may feel like they had some kind of, falling out or miscommunication. Because this is feminine energy working and coming from a state of space of being open and willing and ready to clarify on themselves. This is a feminine energy that isn't necessarily rescinding on something that they potentially said, but more coming into a state of observation, not wanting to allow oneself to be triggered by a circumstance or situation, even if something that one said triggered the masculine. This is almost feminine energy affirming to themselves in separation that what they're moving into feels like something that either can be healed or something that they need to heal from. Because this is feminine energy that is almost amplifying to themselves that the reason that they said something was not necessarily to injure or harm masculine energy, but was almost a moment of feminine trying to articulate to masculine something for the sake or hope that they could have healing come through on that. This is why we see that even now for the feminine in separation, this is feminine that is allowing a level or degree of openness in where they stand. But that openness, that clarity is almost to facilitate and recognize whether this is masculine energy that is ready to come into healing by offering clarity on something that the feminine sees or recognizes that is creating a sense of confusion in the feminine, or if this is masculine that feels like they are just further amplifying that point of confusion, further trying to trigger the feminine. This is almost feminine energy, as we identified in the last reading, that says the only pathway that is potentially resulting in feminine working to heal from a masculine is a masculine wherein the feminine is almost amplifying to the masculine the ability to heal something here, so long as the masculine stops trying to trigger the feminine. If this is a feminine that feels like the masculine is trying to elicit a reaction point from the feminine through their actions, instead of utilizing healthy communication to facilitate positive growth, this is feminine energy that is almost saying like that is that moment that feminine is looking at things right now and just adopting a strategy of allowing oneself this to be a point or opportunity of personal healing. Masculine in separation, you may be seeing this on the part of the feminine energy around you right now, particularly if you just fell into separation due to the fact that there was a feeling that you potentially like had feminine energy coming towards you in a moment you were moving into divine union, and then you let it kind of pull you back out of divine union. There is a moment that a lot of the feminine energy is almost amplifying to you in separation, the fact that they are trying to facilitate your own healing. But that healing needs to start in terms of masculine articulating where your emotional needs are leading you. Because this is feminine energy that, again, is moving towards masculine right now from a state of trying to see where masculine's own emotional priority is. So masculine, again, if you were just coming into divine union and then you got pulled out of that frequency because of energy around you that was trying to figure out where your own emotional priorities lie, you may be feeling right now that you're in one of two different modalities. We may be seeing right now masculine energy that is almost taking accountability, recognizing that something about the way that you moved or something about the way that you did something recently almost amplified to a feminine, that you weren't putting the feminine's own prioritization of needs first and foremost, thereby began preserving the divine union. So we see here that for a lot of masculine energy, this point of observation, this point of recognition almost potentially feels like a moment that you may be taking accountability and recognizing that something that you did here was not necessarily in the best interest of a divine union you were forming. So we do see here that for a lot of the masculine energy right now, this is coming from a point of opening up, almost allowing this to be a breakthrough point that is reaffirming your own level of emotion, of care and attention towards a particular feminine energy right now. And even in this moment, we see that you coming into a state of potentially trying to heal something with this feminine is almost amplifying now the ability of potentially coming back into divine union with this energy. While for other parts of masculine energy in separation right now, this is potentially that moment or that opportunity that you're potentially looking at something right now and feeling like you can't necessarily heal something. But we're seeing here that to a certain extent, for a lot of the masculine energy in separation right now, this moment of feeling like you can't necessarily heal something may be feeling more like an observation of fear, an observation of doubting oneself, of doubting one's own ability to navigate that, or potentially feeling to a certain extent that there may be a feminine that you're trying to move towards right now, but you're feeling like this may be feeling like something akin to that point of doubting one's own self and one's own ability to heal something, because it's almost amplifying that feeling of wondering if the situation, the feminine energy is also in that point. If this is a moment of the feminine also wanting to come into healing or not. So we see that even now for a lot of the masculine energy in separation, being very kind, being very gentle on yourself right now is almost that point that we see is required, because we even see that for a lot of the masculine energy right now, this could be even trying to get advice from other feminine energy on how to heal as it relates to going forward from this point, making sure that instead you use this as productive ground as opposed to letting yourself kind of fall into it like a trigger or a coping mechanism is going to be really important right now. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now, this is already feeling like that catharsis is coming through. Because while we see that this is a difficult journey for masculine, this is almost feeling like a letting go process karmically right now. This is masculine that even feels at this time, this ability to surrender that the outcomes around other karmic connections right now is further amplifying that level or degree of like your own concern and care shifting to a particular feminine energy. And that's why we see for the energy moving into divine union right now, this is feeling like an immediate deepening of that point of connectivity, because not only potentially masculine do you feel to a certain extent that you've chosen, you're validating your own choice, but there's something about the way that the feminine was able to articulate and move through this with you. The fact that you're openly communicating, even as you're feeling these vulnerability points, is further deepening the connection that you have to feminine. Feminine, seeing this masculine that is going through this level or degree of healing and also like shedding their armor at the same time, is almost again amplifying to you that you're moving in this divine union frequency, because this is a masculine that not only are they capable of healing, but they're showing you to a certain extent that they're doing it every step of the way, not just for you, but because of you, but because of the connection. And we see here that in that way, feminine is almost becoming that point of strength for the masculine. Feminine and masculine in the divine union frequency right now, this is that amplification of being able to allow one to do heavy path work and the other one is immediately there to pick up the slack. Masculines letting themselves become emotional soft. So what's feminine doing? Feminine standing in their power. Feminine's not matching the masculine. Feminine's not just reflecting that softness right now. Feminine's almost coming forward and building that sense of safety and protection for the masculine in that modality to show the masculine that it is safe to embody that space or place. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now. Fourth card in our 5-card spread is, we have here the Tower. So for masculine and feminine energy, one of the things that we see right now that is so important and so valuable is the fact that we are recognizing that for masculine and feminine energy right now in divine union, it's not the fact that anything is perfect. In fact, we saw that for a lot of the energy moving into the divine union frequency right now, it is this level or ability to address the difficult, to face the problems, that is allowing this level or degree of renewed strength, of renewed certainty. For feminine energy, this is that moment that's almost creating that opportunity of feminine feeling their own ability of being strong, because this is almost feminine energy in the divine union frequency that is almost feeling the amplification that there isn't anything that they cannot handle, that there isn't anything that they cannot face. So long as the masculine, they're in union with the masculine, this is that moment of feminine feeling to a certain extent that ability to heal is something that they can apply to any circumstance or situation, which is why we see that for so much of this energy right now, that ability to do so is why we see that feminine is almost confronting the hard things first right now, if in the divine union frequency, because it's not just the fact that the feminine feels like they're doing that for the sake of themselves right now, they're doing it for the sake of the other. This is feminine coming into their modality. You want to see a feminine get strong, give the feminine something to protect. Give the feminine something to do, not just for their own behalf, but for the sake of the other. And suddenly we see the feminine coming into that point of strength and power. We see that for a lot of the feminine energy in this divine union frequency right now, that ability to do so is coming through in a very profound way. For masculine energy in divine union, seeing a feminine that's able to navigate this, seeing a feminine that's almost like, I have to stress this, feminine's own ability to almost foresee that crisis point before it happens, to have that point of observation, to have that point of feminine, like taking that level or degree of care, of attention towards things, tackling them before they even become a problem. Masculine, that's further amplifying to you that ability to allow oneself to emotionally soften, because it's almost that moment of, again, it's not that feeling of feeling like you have to lean on a feminine energy, but it's a feeling that this is a feminine energy that's almost trying to create a safe space for you, is always mindful of allowing you to have that level or degree of not needing to take all of that burden on yourself. That's almost, again, for the masculine energy in this modality, it's almost emotionally overwhelming, because that in a way almost, again, pulls you into a space or place of putting a lot of care and attention on the feminine, because again, this is masculine energy that sees a feminine energy that's willing to do the difficult thing for them, but doesn't necessarily ever want to put the feminine energy in that position. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now. This is why we see that this is leading to you moving deeper into the heart of the divine union, because again, this is a masculine is potentially feeling the power of weight. If this is something that the feminine tried to articulate upon, even if masculine wasn't thinking about it in the same way, but again, trusting, leaning into the feminine, allowing oneself to be vulnerable, allowing that point or observation of prioritizing the needs of the feminine energy. Masculine, there may be something about having that journey right now that's almost creating optics on things that you hadn't necessarily seen from the perspective that you are now seeing. It's almost you're being able to see things right now from the feminine perspective's eyes. It's almost amplifying something right now that you couldn't see beyond the fact of not before having a connection with feminine in this way. It's like that point of observation feels like it's almost immediately facilitating healing, as it were, because again, it is that level or degree of discernment right now that of something that was potentially coming towards you that felt like it was harmless, that now you're identifying, especially if some of that energy was trying to amplify that they have some kind of lack of patience here. It's almost like that point of recognition that is helping you see things and feeling the ability of, again, a feminine energy that is facilitating a space or place where you can be emotionally open, you can be emotionally safe. You don't necessarily need to be the strong one in those positions, because it's almost a feminine energy that is thinking, again, very carefully and conscientiously at all times at protecting the energy of the divine union. Masculine, this is why we see that some of this is almost feeling like a bit of crisis aversion here, because especially if this is that moment that is amplifying the difference between energy that was moving towards you for the sake of genuinely just wanting to heal and be willing and being able to be patient in recognizing that now might not be the time, versus energy that was almost demanding to a certain extent that level or degree of attention from you at a moment that you're moving into divine union. This is that amplification on, again, what feels like it can be healed versus what needs to be avoided going forward. Masculine and feminine in separation right now, this point of observation. This is why we see that feminine is almost leaving themselves open to communication with masculine right now in separation, but is being very articulate to the masculine in relation to their needs and what they are seeing, because this is feminine energy that feels to a certain extent that a crisis point has occurred with the masculine. This is a feminine energy that is almost amplifying to masculine that the crisis point may have been already reached. And this is a feminine that's almost in communication with masculine to see if the masculine energy is at a point where they're willing to recognize what created the crisis in order to better heal it, or if the masculine is trying to amplify the crisis, or if the masculine energy is creating further crisis, almost trying to allow that to build up or almost build that point of chaos, again, potentially not necessarily moving them back into divine union, but almost expressing an ability of a masculine not being able to move into that point of healing and correction. This is feminine that's almost just coming into a point of accepting this, because this isn't necessarily a feminine energy that is willing to take that karmic burden on for the masculine, trying to fix a crisis that the masculine's creating. It's more just feminine energy and separation, trying to observe and say, if there is a problem, how do you navigate a problem? How do you navigate? It's saying almost in a way, feminine's almost saying, recognizing that when you're moving into divine union, it's not that you have to be perfect, but it's all about what you do when there is a problem, whether you, again, try to facilitate, try to deny, try to create further crisis, almost try to put the crisis on the feminine for having brought up the problem in the first place, or if you're showing a capacity and ability to come into healing. Masculine, you may be feeling this right now on the part of some of the feminine energy around you right now, because what we're potentially seeing is, again, this is either masculine energy that moved away from a divine union to try to repair something with another feminine energy, or this is masculine energy right now that is trying to come back into a point of healing with the feminine that they may have had that maintain that divine union frequency with to a certain extent. And we see here that, again, it's that moment of observation, and it may even be articulated to you right now by some feminine energy around you right now, masculine, that if the feminine brought something to your attention, it was probably and potentially not because the feminine energy was trying to create a place of crisis, but to see if something here could be facilitated into deeper healing. And for masculine energy right now, that observation point is something that you may be moving right now in communication with the feminine on. And we see here that a lot of that energy, a lot of that communication for masculine right now may feel very triggering, and it may feel like a little bit of a make or break point around some of this energy right now. Because again, masculine energy, you're potentially feeling emotionally overwhelmed. You're feeling potentially emotionally triggered by some of the things that feminine is revealing to you. And this is that moment that we see that for some of the masculine energy right now, this is that moment that you may be feeling like you need to move away from something for the sake of healing, not being ready to kind of do that kind of deeper coursework with the feminine energy. Because again, it may feel less like a feminine that is articulating to you these needs from a point of wanting to come into better union with you, so much as it is potentially feeling like it is overwhelming you or creating too much of an overwhelming like moment, which is why we may see that you may be trying to distance yourself from that sense or space of crisis. For other parts of the masculine energy right now, this is potentially feeling like a moment that does create a space or place for you that you feel very raw and emotionally open, but you're almost allowing yourself to sink deeper into that level of vulnerability, recognizing that this is a feminine that is trying to communicate with you about something that they identify or feel is an ongoing crisis between you and them, all for the desire to heal and move further into the divine union frequency. This is why we see to a certain extent right now some energy of masculine is even potentially asking themselves whether they're ready to come into divine union, because it is that moment of recognizing just how vulnerable being in divine union may have to require you to feel, that may either feel again like something that you are ready to embody or may feel like a bridge too far. That's where we see that choice coming through right now with this Two of Swords. The problem with a lot of the masculine energy right now, that personal choice may be one that is maybe feeling like it is hard to communicate to feminine right now, because this could be a lot of masculine energy and separation, potentially feeling to a certain extent that articulation point of feeling almost like you're not ready. Like there's something about this. And I think that one of the things that we appreciate right now for some of the masculine energy, even in this modality, is that's okay. It's okay not to be ready. What's important, if you're not feeling like you're ready to move into that space or place with a feminine, is that you communicate that that is the case, rather than potentially causing further chaos by not amplifying what it is that you truly need or want right now. So we see that for some of the masculine energy right now, you may be walking, if you're in separation, like you're walking a very fine line, because you're potentially wanting to articulate and amplify to some feminine energy, if in separation right now, that while you may feel like you are very, very emotionally close to some feminine energy right now, you may not necessarily feel like you're ready to take that step into divine union. And what we appreciate for some of the masculine energy in this modality is even that ability right now, the ability to amplify a need, to be able to say where you are and how you're feeling, allows for an immediate healing point, because it allows for a point of productivity in terms of you making a choice and amplifying on it, rather than leaving the feminine energy in a place of confusion or trying to puzzle out where you are and how you're feeling. We see even now for masculine energy, this could be a moment that you almost saying to feminine, like, this is the limitation on where I am right now. Doesn't feel like a door that's closing so much as it feels like it's almost immediately bringing some catharsis into situations. Because this is a feminine energy that's saying that's okay. So long as you're just being honest and open, this is something that can be worked with. Feminine, we are seeing here that even if there's a moment right now with masculine, where masculine is articulating and explaining what created a crisis point, even if it isn't necessarily ideal to the interests or desires of the feminine right now, this is feminine almost immediately feeling healing through this, because this is feminine immediately getting closure. Getting, not necessarily closure, but allowing at that point that the crisis can come to a point of having something practical that can be done to address it. It's the difference between having something that feels like it's creating the potentiality of an ongoing crisis amidst confusion, versus feminine seeing and experiencing something that is a problem that can immediately have a solution. That's why we see here the only energy that feminine is almost pushing away from right now as it relates to masculine in separation is masculine energy that is almost moving into a space or state where every time they feel emotionally overwhelmed, they stop communicating, or they like deny the fact that, or they come into a like an emotional overwhelm. That lack of consistency, that lack of communication, that lack of ability, feminine feeling to a certain extent that masculine is trying to utilize their own over emotionality as a way to try to like control the feminine energy's behavior or to control the feminine energy's articulation. This is almost the thing that we see that for the feminine, that's the only moment the feminine saying absolutely not. Because feminine energy is literally in a space or state where it's like when feminine sees anything that feels like it is confusing, feminine's just immediately cutting it off. Feminine is focused right now in separation on their healing journey. And feminine is almost amplifying to masculine that they can join them in that space, regardless of where the masculine is, so long as the masculine shows that same ability of emotional balance via communication of their emotional self. This is feminine energy that's almost saying right now the only thing that feminine will not tolerate is a confusion or inconsistency from the part of the masculine in terms of articulating and amplifying where they are. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now, this is why we see a lot of this energy right now is, again, really deepening, coming in. If you've been able to maintain over the last few weeks coming into divine union, this is really, really this fast deepening of those divine unions, specifically because this is a masculine that's feeling overwhelmed, not just in the fact that they're surrendering a lot of unhealed karmic connections right now for the sake of coming into union with the feminine, but it's almost the feminine feeling, that feminine, that security of a feminine that is able to navigate a point of crisis with masculine and helps facilitate solutions, helping navigate these points. A feminine that's not necessarily letting themselves get triggered by it, but almost is someone who they can articulate and discuss these things with to be able to move into a faster outcome. Masculine's almost immediately seeing the benefits. Potentially your eyes are being open to the fact of like what actually happens when you're building a divine union with the feminine, that again, you don't necessarily ignore, or you don't necessarily try to like, put your own will on something towards feminine, but you build with them. You hear them, you listen to them, you choose together, you make moves together. Feeling the difference of having that kind of alignment almost feels like, in a way, this expansion point, because it feels like you're not being forced to do everything on your own. And even that sense of understanding right now, feeling like, again, the difference between having a partner and being in partnership. Saying it again, the difference between having a partner versus being in partnership is being amplified by a feeling that, again, it's not that it's not making things difficult, it's that you're being able to move through difficult things much faster, much quicker, because it's that sense of doing it together. Masculine and feminine in divine union, you already know this. This is why you're in the divine union frequency. You've been here for a while. Masculine, what's almost happening here is, again, if you're continuing right now to empower the feminine, if you're continuing right now to build that feminine energy up, to let that feminine energy come into their most authentic expression of self, this is almost that moment for masculine that feels almost overwhelming. Because this is that moment, and I have to say, even for some of the masculine energy in this modality right now, it is almost something that feels a little bit emotionally overwhelming right now, because like you are seeing a feminine energy that is standing so much in their own power that in a way, like it's almost like taking your breath away. It's almost like coming into that moment of really just that point of appreciation may feel like it's overwhelming. But what we see here even now for masculine energy, recognizing and feeling the power of that, feeling that energy and feeling that connection to an energy, having that point of building together is almost creating that point right now where, again, masculine, you are feeling the double, and this is why it feels so potentially overwhelming right now for masculine, because this is that masculine energy that's almost like, again, coming into a state or space of, again, covetousness, protection, of having fostered an energy coming into this right now to a point that it almost creates a point of anxiety. But we see here that for the energy of the divine union, that feminine almost amplifying, even seeing masculine in that point of emotionality, being able to emotionally surrender this way. This is feminine almost amplifying their connection point to masculine. This is almost feminine. This is, again, a feminine energy that is like standing in this way. And what does the feminine energy do when they come into this modality? Do they move in a different direction from masculine? No. They do everything they can to protect the energy that help them find themselves. This is a feminine energy that, again, does not like hit the ground running when they find themselves. This is a feminine energy that finds themselves and stands in their power on the ground that help them grow. I'm going to say that again for the people in the back. This is feminine energy that does not run away when they find their power, but this is feminine energy that stands in their power and protects the ground from which they grew. And we see that for a lot of the feminine energy right now. This is why there's this feeling right now of amplification and doing everything that you can right now. Because this is almost feminine feeling the appreciation of a masculine energy, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to, that helped the feminine find themselves at this point, help the feminine come into their full power. And this is feminine energy almost saying, this is the feminine like putting their flag down and saying like, this is where I stand, this is where you find me. And for masculine, even seeing feminine in this way, that point of needing that sense or level of saying like, this is something that I am here with you, this is what we're creating together, is almost allowing masculine to come into a deeper sense of emotional openness, because this is masculine in divine union, almost finding levels of degrees of emotional vulnerability that they feel like they haven't necessarily been able to reach before. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our King of Cups in its reversal in combination with the Devil energy in its reversal. It's a lot of hard work to be this vulnerable. Bottom of the deck, communication. What's important right now? What's important is communication, 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 communication. Masculine and feminine energy in divine union right now. This ability that we're seeing right now, even in the divine union, this is why we see for the masculine energy right now, even this moment of being in divine union that may be feeling somewhat emotionally overwhelming. It's hard to keep your heart this open. It may feel a little triggering, but it's also feeling like, again, this is literally a heart opening exercise for the masculine energy and the divine union frequency, because it's not, this is what we're seeing here. Your natural reaction probably from the past was that you had to like close up. You had to put your armor on. What's feminine doing? In the divine union frequency for the masculine whose heart is opening this way. Keep going. Open up more. Open up more. See how much more open it can be. See how much more open it can be. See how much more you can trust me in opening up in this way. Let me show you that this is a space and place where we want to foster this and we want to grow this out even more, right? So we see that for masculine, one of the reasons in divine union right now, that even now it may be feeling like very triggering, is because I told you this is feeling like an expansion exercise. This is, again, looking at things right now and seeing what can be healed internally. And it's hard because it's almost that moment that you're recognizing the way you need to heal it is by becoming more vulnerable, becoming more open, moving even more so from that state is almost immediately reminding you at every moment, even though it feels triggering, it's also completely safe to do so. It's also completely safe to do so. So this is masculine navigating beyond the internal fear inside versus the reality. And this is masculine that keeps feeling that anxiety point in terms of moving in this way and immediately getting in the divine union frequency, further amplification from feminine that it is safe to do so. Feminine, seeing a masculine moving in this way, further amplifies your own sense of healing, because again, this is a masculine that we see. The feminine isn't seeing a masculine that is shutting down at a point of emotional overwhelm. Instead, masculine is pushing through their own trigger and talking towards things that are hard for them to talk towards, speaking things that are hard for them to say, pushing through their own limitation, their own internal hurdle, and in a way continuing to facilitate the healing between you and the masculine energy through this ability and amplification that is almost promoting your own growth, your own strength. So this is masculine and feminine in union, like moving very much in the same modality right now, though it's a lot more emotionally triggering for the masculine to do so right now. For feminine, this is very empowering. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now, this ability of masculine to surrender the outcome around outside circumstances and situations wherein there may be an ability to heal is the healing. Is the healing. Masculine recognizing that they potentially don't require that point of closure from energy right now, even if that energy has articulated that the ability to have it is there. Because masculine realizing that often conversations of closure are usually conversations of opening to a certain extent. This is that observation point for masculine, how far when it's come already, almost masculine being like, wow, I've come a lot, I've already made a lot of progress just touching the divine union frequency, moving towards it, because even doing so, masculine's realizing that they've already started to create a point of closure around things right now that they may have felt like they needed closure on the past. This is masculine feeling the overwhelm and recognizing that the closure is observable in their lack of need to get closure. That's the closure. Feminine seeing that from a masculine right now, almost saying from masculine, seeing, having some energy, or seeing for a certain extent, masculine saying like, yeah, they've given me some articulation or openness about like wanting to fix something or wanting to heal something. I told them it's just not now. Now is not a good time. It's not something I really need. Feminine seeing a masculine that's recognizing that the fact is not the fact that the opportunity for closure isn't there. It's the fact that masculine is just observing it for what it is and saying like, that's just not the direction I feel like going in right now. I'm going in a direction with you. It's not something I need. That's immediately amplifying to feminine and saying like, wow, this is us moving into divine union. This is a masculine that's moving in a different way. This is a masculine that's showing me in the actions. It's not the fact that this is masculine moving towards feminine because it's the only direction for the masculine to go into. This is feminine seeing masculine being offered possibilities in terms of other directions, and masculine almost saying karmically and energetically to the energy around them, did I stutter? Did I stutter? This is the direction that masculine's moving in right now. And masculine even articulating and feeling that point, potentially even opening up to feminine about like, again, the way they're moving now may have been not necessarily something that they had in the past. Even masculine talking about that right now with feminine is amplifying to feminine that this is a change. This feels different. This is them moving into divine union right now. Masculine and feminine that are in separation, this is why we see that there's something here that almost feels like it's giving a little bit of second chance energy for some of the masculine in separation right now. Specifically and especially if this is masculine energy that was moving into the divine union frequency with the feminine, and then energy around the masculine tried to pull the masculine away. If this is masculine energy that superseded their own desire versus the energy of the feminine that they were moving into divine union with right now, we see here that for a lot of the masculine energy, this point is allowing for some point of understanding and breakthrough. Because again, this is either masculine energy that moved away from the possibility of divine union for an energy that said that they potentially just wanted to heal something. And now we're almost seeing right now masculine feeling like they need to make a choice. This is masculine almost observing right now. And again, potentially even going through an experience wherein a lot of the energy around you right now in separation has potentially articulated to you the same message, which is a feeling of saying that one of the reasons that something did not proceed forward was due to your own ability not to help the energy realize that they were the priority. Masculine, this may be something that you may have recognized that you were doing in the past. This observation point that we've been seeing about the idea that if you try to please all the energy around you, you can effectively not necessarily completely satisfy one of the energies due to the fact that you're leaving yourself too spread out and open to fulfill the karmic obligations of like a lot of energy as opposed to your own desire. Even now we see for masculine and separation, this point of understanding may be allowing you a lot of much more focused determination in terms of what it is that you truly want at this time. For some of the masculine energy and separation, this potentially could just be an observation point that you're not necessarily ready to move into divine union. And that is okay, so long as you articulate upon it. And what we're seeing for a lot of the masculine energy right now is almost that moment that you're experiencing in separation where feminine energy is saying, it is okay. Wherever you find yourself is okay. This isn't feminine that is trying to demand masculine move into divine union, because feminine realizes and recognizes that you can't force an energy to be ready for divine union. This is feminine, masculine almost realizing that the feminine energy around the masculine right now is saying, it's okay for you to be on any space and place on your healing journey. But the only way they know that you're actually on your healing journey is if you are willing to communicate on it. The difference between a healing journey and someone just moving with the motions, going with the flow, is intentionality. You need to say, you need to speak it into words. You need to tell the feminine energy where you are and what you seek. And feminine is almost amplifying to you in separation that they are willing to meet you. They're willing to meet you on any place. Like state the ground. The feminine will meet you there. But if you can't say where that is the only way that the feminine is not necessarily eager to engage. That is not where the feminine wants to be, because again, that is something that feels like it is misaligned because it does not allow the feminine to meet you where you're at. It almost creates a point of confusion, and the feminine can see that that confusion just creates ongoing crisis. Feminine, you may be trying to articulate this right now in separation to a masculine. And again, feminine is literally communicating this to masculine right now. I have to stress, not for some goal or some aspiration of trying to convince the masculine of the benefits of coming into divine union. This is feminine energy that's literally doing it for the sake of the masculine in separation. This is a lot of messages that are coming to masculine in separation right now saying, I know this is hard to hear. I'm not saying this with the hope or aspiration that it leads us back into union. I'm telling you this because this is how feminine expresses their care, saying the hard thing, saying the thing that the masculine may not want to hear, but that they ultimately feel that they need to hear. We see that this is feminine, like almost saying to masculine, do not misunderstand this. This is coming from a place of care, of profound love, because this is feminine almost seeing masculine and feeling like masculine is creating an ongoing crisis, even if they're not in union, through this sense of, again, reactivity, confusion, and not being open and truly expressive of what it is that masculine truly desires. Continuing forward right now, between the devil and, masculine and feminine right now, again, clarification between our devil energy and its reversal and our Queen of Wands. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with, again, Two of Pentacles. What is feminine energy saying to masculine in separation? Feminine saying to masculine in separation, you're showing me, you're saying that I'm the priority, potentially, but everything you're doing feels like I am not. And what we see here with feminine is this is feminine almost saying to a certain extent, and this is why we see that there's so much energy right now that may be falling into separation. This is feminine energy that's not trying to say to masculine, change. This is not feminine energy saying, I refuse. This is feminine almost saying to masculine, acknowledge what I am showing you. Acknowledge what I am showing you. I am showing you this so that you can see. I'm trying to give you this sight. I'm trying to give you this insight to your own self, not in order to change. The point of change is feminine saying, it's okay. It's okay. This is almost feminine separation into masculine. If you are not prioritizing me, that's okay. But at least recognize it. At least confirm it. At least confirm what the feminine is observing. And if feminine's almost saying to masculine, if in separation right now, and if it's not correct, then clarify. Explain to feminine what the feminine is misinterpreting, because this is feminine saying to masculine, this is what I see. I'm leaving you the opportunity to clarify it. Masculine in separation right now, you may be feeling that there is a feminine that sees you in this way. And for some of the masculine energy, one of the reasons this could be feel triggering is seeing a feminine energy or amplify that this is how they see you. You may be feeling like the feminine's getting it wrong. You may be feeling like the feminine is looking at you in some way that feels like it is belittling. It feels like it is looking at you in a way that they're almost amplifying, again, why they may feel like they cannot come into divine union with you. But this is a point of recognizing the difference that a feminine energy that doesn't feel like they can come into divine union with you wouldn't even bother telling you. This is a feminine energy potentially recognizing that if a feminine energy is doing this level or degree of work to try to tell you something about yourself, that's probably the best expression of love and care that you can imagine from a feminine energy, because that is showing a feminine energy that desires something better with you, which is why we see the feminine energy expending so much breath trying to articulate something to you, which is why we see right now for masculine energy this modality. Recognizing this right now, maybe creating a space and separation where you feel or you see something about your own self that is requiring you to effectively make a choice, because this could be feeling right now that there's some feminine energy that's giving you a lot of insight in terms of how you may have been moving, or if not how you've been moving, how it's been being observed on the part of the feminine. And even now, what we appreciate for a lot of the masculine in separation is, even if you're moving into a space of determining and deciding that you don't want to be in divine union, that level or degree of insight and your ability to acknowledge it is still leading to a lot of path of healing with feminine energy, but only if you acknowledge it. Because we see here that the only thing that the feminine energy is not taking allowance for right now is a masculine that is moving in this vibration and refusing to admit it, or refusing to clarify what they seek, because that's feminine that feels like they need to remove the crisis point, which is potentially a masculine that is trying to, again, be in a feminine energy's life without working in collaboration with them, but more just trying to navigate or manage the feminine almost more like an object instead of a partner. Masculine and feminine energy right now moving into divine union. Masculine's own ability to explain their emotional balance, the fact that there isn't the fact that there's something here that feels easy, that it is fraught territory. Masculine's own ability to articulate that, and even potentially masculine's own ability to amplify to feminine, that there are forces outside of the masculine energy space that they do have consideration for, that they do have feelings for. This is almost a feminine and masculine in divine union, recognizing that when you move into divine union, it doesn't mean that you pretend that you stop caring about anything and everyone. It's more about how you navigate those feelings. It's more about how you observe them. It's about the ability to articulate to each other the complexity of things. Even now, this is feminine energy that is feeling the ability to move into divine union with masculine, because this is not masculine energy pretending that they don't have feelings for anything or anyone around the feminine. This is masculine that is almost trying to amplify to feminine the delicacy, the discernment, the ability to navigate those multiple things, but at the same time, prioritize the feminine is the amplification to feminine, that this is energy that they can move in divine union with, because that in itself reflects the point and the nature of healing that feels like such a sea change to the feminine. Because this is not a masculine that's pretending that there is no past, that nothing happened prior to the feminine. This is a masculine that's almost having the feminine work with them to help navigate these things. And feminine is doing it in kind with the masculine. It is that level or ability to discern, to mutually look at things and decide a path forward that is amplifying the energy right now that's moving further into the divine union frequency. Masculine and feminine energy in the divine union frequency, you do this all the time. This may be feeling like I'm singing to a choir right now, because if you're deep in the heart of the frequency, you're like, well, yeah, obviously. And it's going to feel a little like dumbed down, because for the energy that's already in the divine union frequency, that's something that you potentially learned long ago. It's more of that moment right now, recognizing that is constant, incremental, for masculine and feminine in the divine union frequency, it's a reminder that that never goes away. Instead, it's always a continual, perpetual rebalancing that needs effort, constant effort, energy, and tension. You can't just hold a note by holding a note. You got to pay attention to the other person, see where they are to make sure that you guys are in that point. So we see right now, even now for masculine and feminine doing this heavier karmic work, that constant care, that constant attention, that constant prioritization of the other one does not necessarily feel like it's getting you off your axis. It feels like you're correcting. It feels like a point of constant course correction. It feels like that minute watch work that you're doing right now. And even now, it's because, again, it is that heart-opening exercise on the part of the masculine right now that's occurring, and the amplification of strength coming in the feminine. That, again, it's not that you are the same people that entered the divine union. You are being changed by the divine union frequency, and you're constantly recalibrating and adjusting around each other in the process. Continuing clarification right now between our Queen of Wands in combination with our Tower card. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with Nine of Wands. Masculine and feminine right now in divine union. The only thing that we're seeing right now, and this is one of the things that we're seeing that is almost coming through, which is very fascinating, is feminine is seeing the fact that masculine is very emotionally vulnerable right now. That some of the work that the masculine and feminine is doing right now in the divine union frequency is putting masculine energy in a place where they are almost intentionally putting their guard down. They're intentionally being incredibly vulnerable. What's feminine energy doing if they're maintaining the divine union frequency? Seeing masculine in that point of vulnerability. Is feminine taking advantage of it? No. What's feminine doing? Feminine is protecting. Feminine's coming through and protecting that space at all costs. They're being extremely fastidious right now, and they're almost, again, moving, and this is the only problem with some of the feminine energy right now, almost trying to foresee problems before they exist, cutting things off at the past, looking at things right now, and almost, again, like almost over expressing, like assuming the worst on things, because again, feminine's moving into a protective energy right now to protect the masculine energy's own emotional vulnerability at this time, because feminine in a way is trying to give masculine that clearance zone. Masculine in emotional vulnerability right now, this is masculine feeling the anxiety of seeing a feminine in this ability, like moving into their own energy. This is seeing the feminine energy coming into that point. Like, again, this is masculine. It feels like they're continuing to grow the feminine into their most authentic expression of self. But even now, we see that seeing feminine turning into that or moving into that space is creating a sense of anxiety for the masculine. Because, again, having the masculine in that point of also having this work, feminine is moving into their masculine energy. Masculine is feeling the overwhelm of coming into the embodiment of their feminine energy, which is potentially leading to a lot of that emotional outpouring that is making the masculine feel somewhat more triggered and vulnerable. But these energies are amplifying the other in themselves. So even now we see that the masculine is also, again, reflecting in the feminine that same level or degree of care, of caution, of anxiety, because again, it's almost all reflecting two energies that are doing everything they can to protect from the connection to the other one. Feminine is getting much more empowered. Masculine is getting much more emotionally vulnerable. See how that works? Masculine energy and feminine coming into the divine union frequency. This is going to feel like a lot of a heart opening exercise from the masculine right now, because again, it is that moment of feeling to a certain extent, this point of navigating or experiencing something that, again, there may have even been a point that you thought that something was relatively harmless, that you're now feeling to a certain extent. Feminine was able to almost foresee or anticipate something that was going to be more of a problem before you even recognized it. And we see here for a lot of the masculine energy, that point of feminine's own power of observation feels like one that is like a little intimidating to a certain extent, because again, it's that moment that we see it much like the energy already in the divine union frequency. That point of empowerment, that point of recognition is almost creating this fastidiousness in terms of recognizing the ability and desire to protect the divine union that's forming at all costs. And it almost is creating a moment right now that is feeling like a little bit like the energy coming into the divine union is very easily triggered. But we see here the energy is very easily triggered because they feel like they're very much working to protect the other. Masculine and feminine in separation right now. This is exactly why we see the feminine energy in separation. They're being very open about where they are. Feminine energy is calling it like you see it, if you will, as it relates to talking to masculine right now. And if there's a feminine energy that thinks that masculine is bringing some point of crisis to the feminine right now, this is feminine that's telling the masculine about it. But I have to stress, this is almost feminine saying to masculine, I am telling this to you because I hope that you can heal it. I hope that we can heal it. And if you can't heal it, this is almost feminine energy that's saying, if I didn't think that we could heal it, I wouldn't be saying anything in the first place. This is literally feminine trying to say to masculine, if I didn't think that this is something that could be fixed, I wouldn't be saying anything in the first place. You wouldn't be hearing from me if I'd already thought that this was a lost cause. This is feminine almost saying, like, if I didn't think that there was a solution to this, I would not be in a place of trying to help you identify this. Unfortunately, for some of the masculine energy right now, whatever the feminine's bringing forth right now in separation, it may be triggering enough that you may be taking it the wrong way. That you may be taking a feminine that's articulating to you in this way as some kind of feeling of rejection, as opposed to something that is supposed to be more akin to course correction. So we even see now for masculine energy, the way that you're navigating this right now is almost articulating and amplifying whether this is going to feel like something that you are moving away from a feminine, potentially feeling too intimidated by having this conversation. Again, amplifying your own point of just recognizing that you might not necessarily be ready for divine union, or if you're even taking this with a moment of, again, consideration, amplification, allowing this point of observation to help you see something from the feminine perspective, all for the sake of being able to take about accountability and acknowledge it. But it starts, and this is a problem with masculine energy, it starts with that point of accountability. And even now, it's almost reaching that level of vulnerability and taking accountability for it that may be making you feel something akin to an emotional overwhelm, because it's almost that moment of feminine seeing something in you and effectively, again, even if it wasn't what you necessarily expected or aspired to show, you almost have to take that point of validation and say, yes, something that you did see, that is true. Let me try to explain it, or let me try to correct it. Masculine and feminine, continuing to get clarification between our Tower and our Two of Swords in its reversal. Clarification coming through right now with Seven of Pentacles. Why is feminine being so, it's going to feel like for a lot of the masculine energy right now, feminine opening up in this degree may feel a little intimidating, because this is a feminine energy that does not, thinks there's only one like criminal energetic offense that feminine can feel that they can be experienced right now in the part of the experience with the masculine. And that is having their time wasted. Having their time wasted. And this is why we see that feminine energy is being so articulate right now and trying to get to the bottom of something, because this is feminine energy that does not have time to stick around in a point of crisis to try to fix it. This is a feminine energy that's either saying we either fix it immediately or I move away. This is feminine not necessarily focused on trying to see a problem and then throw all their time, effort, and energy and being the sole person to fix it. This is feminine energy literally in separation saying, and this is feminine energy saying to a certain extent to masculine, if this is a problem right now, I think the problem is that we might desire different things. This is almost feminine saying to masculine, the problem I may be seeing right now is the fact that you might not necessarily be being authentic on what it is that you want. And feminine's almost saying to masculine, are you not being authentic to me, or are you not being authentic to yourself? And that is why we see that feminine is bringing these points up to masculine to almost say to masculine, articulate what you want and make sure you understand. Because either, again, feminine saying through their own powers of discernment, either you're not being authentic to me about what you want, or you're not being authentic with yourself on what you will need to do to get it. Masculine, you may be seeing the feminine having this point or level of patience right now, which again, you may feel pulls you into further separation if you're feeling like that is feminine coming from a trigger point. But what we're seeing here is that for a lot of the masculine energy experiencing this right now is potentially feeling like you are working right now in the presence of a feminine that knows exactly what they want. That if anything, this may be feeling right now, masculine, that you're trying to move towards the energy of a feminine that knows exactly what you want, and you're potentially feeling the weight of recognizing that when you move towards a feminine energy that knows exactly what they want, there's going to be very little room. There's going to be very, 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 very little room for slip-ups. But even with those slip-ups, it's not the fact that you can't slip up. It's the fact of recognizing that you better know exactly what you want. Because this is a feminine energy that isn't going to exist in a space or allow for a point of confusion to come through. This is a feminine energy that if they feel like you don't know what you want, or if you're not staying focused to your own goals, to your own articulation of what it is that you desire, that this is in a way the only thing that will effectively cut you off from being in communication with this feminine, because this is a feminine energy that doesn't operate in a space or place of maybes or what ifs or I don't know. This is a feminine energy that's only being pulled towards the energy that says, this is what I want. This is what I'm manifesting. And that, in a way, as we see for masculine, that point that's almost helping accelerate your own healing process, even if you are in separation right now. Because if you're aspiring to move towards the feminine in this modality, you recognize that you better come correct, because this energy isn't going to leave that kind of like middle ground to muddle around trying to like occupy a place in between. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now, this observation point, this sense right now, things feel like they're potentially escalating and bringing things in much faster. You may be feeling like right now that you're moving much more deeply into the divine union frequency, because again, this ability to analyze and recognize what feels like it is beneficial versus what feels like it is detrimental is almost creating a lot of choices right now that almost feel like your own purpose is becoming unified very quickly, because it's like you're sharing the similar perspective. Masculine and feminine already in the divine union frequency, you do this. You're doing this all the time. More than anything, we see that more than for masculine and feminine in the divine union frequency, you're moving at such a heightened level right now of care and emotional vulnerability for each other, that it's just creating a very, very like, it's almost like creating a point of like anxiety around anything that feels like it might be harmful to the divine union. That's just like almost creating a space or place where you're like having a lot of driven action today, but all for the sake of protecting the divine union and averting any sense of like frustration or crisis. This is masculine and feminine, again, almost working in harmony in that like beautiful battery of the divine union to like take these steps forward, not just for the self, but to protect the energy of the union for the other, as it were. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our 8 of Wands in combination with our 2 of Pentacles. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now, and now we've got the energies reflecting themselves. Masculine and feminine in the divine union frequency, you guys are you're reflecting each other right now, and that's why we see even now taking that emotional overwhelm and utilizing it in a productive way is the power of the divine union. It's not that things are perfect. It's not that you feel completely emotionally balanced all the time. It's not the fact that you don't feel those emotional overwhelms. It's what you do with it. And for masculine and feminine, we see that point of ability to communicate, to openly communicate when you're feeling that influx of emotionality, is what is delivering that ability to move through it much more efficiently. Because again, you're not trying to hide how you're feeling from the other. You're just articulating it. And immediately feeling that sense of the other person being like, I feel the same. If someone's feeling like, I'm feeling really emotionally overwhelmed today, you don't pretend you don't feel it. You're just saying it, and the other energy is going, me too. And like that point of, again, mutual ability to experience something is what's allowing for you to move through it a lot more effectively. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now, this ability to see a lot of energy around you right now that is demanding your time, effort, energy, attention, and just being able to put it off to a certain extent and realize that that's just kind of what you have to do when you're moving into divine union. That's that moment that, again, is amplifying your own connection and moving you deeper into the heart of the divine union. Because again, it's not that point of pretending that there aren't energies around you that desire that point. Having that point of recognition, opening up to each other, saying like, I have to let things go. I have to reposition people in my life as we consider move forward in this way. It's not something that you're pretending isn't existing. It's something that you're openly communicating about. And in that way, we see that it's facilitating a deepening of the partnership because you're even utilizing that moment that you're feeling some of that emotional overwhelm. You're not trying to hide it. You're helping each other through it. Masculine and feminine coming in separation right now. Feminine and masculine in separation are also mirroring each other right now. The problem is, what do you do with that mirror? Feminine is trying to say to masculine to a certain extent, if in separation, this is why I can't emotionally open up to you. This is why I have to limit the thing I feel about you. And that's hard for the feminine, because this is literally feminine almost saying to masculine, I don't want to have to do that. If feminine's giving masculine a critique right now, this is feminine literally saying to masculine, I don't want to have to do that. I'm telling you these things not to create crisis. I'm telling them because my heart is breaking that I see these things, and I hope that you can fix them if I tell you them. Masculine, you may be seeing and experiencing a feminine that's trying to articulate this to you. A feminine is trying to say, if I'm showing you faults right now and we're in separation, it is not because I'm trying to push you away. I'm trying to see if you can find a way to validate and amplify, either validate what I'm experiencing, tell me that it's the truth, especially if this is feminine that feels like you're not prioritizing them over the energies around you. Tell me what it is that you truly want, is what the feminine in separation is saying. And this is almost feminine energy saying, I will let my heart break in the process so long as it's productive, but it needs to start with you being able to be open, because this is literally feminine saying the only thing that will allow for a closure point with the masculine in separation right now is if you refuse to tell me what it is that you want. Because that is a feminine that feels like, to a certain extent, a masculine that is not that the masculine isn't feeling something and it isn't hearing feminine, is a masculine that effectively is allowing a feminine, seeing a feminine in a point of crisis, in a point of pain, whose heart is literally breaking for the masculine right now, and is just choosing to let the feminine energy suffer there. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now, between our Two of Pentacles in combination with our Nine of Swords in its upright. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with honesty. Honesty, honesty, honesty. And this is why we see feminine right now almost saying to masculine and saying, if you truly care about me, then you will be honest with me. This is literally feminine saying, again, it doesn't matter. Again, this is feminine saying, if you truly care about me, you will be honest. And this is feminine saying, I care about you right now. I'm almost creating a conflict point by being open with you when I know I shouldn't. Because again, this is feminine almost saying, I am showing you something with the hope that you might be able to add clarity to it. And if this is feminine that is almost saying to masculine, I see that I feel like I'm not a priority in your life. This is feminine almost saying to masculine, if that is the case, tell me. We will find a solution for it. I will find a place for you. But it needs to start with you being honest about what it is that you truly want. So we see here that for feminine, this is a moment of saying, looking towards masculine and saying, I'm not telling you something about yourself to get you to amend it. I'm either giving it to you so you can see yourself, see what I see in you, so that you can either confirm it or clarify. Masculine, you may be feeling this right now on the part of a feminine, and it may feel very triggering. Something the feminine has shown you about yourself may feel very difficult to see. It may even be feeling somewhat triggering because you may feel like they are misinterpreting you or belittling something, looking at something that's much more complicated and almost oversimplifying it. But this is why we see that this is an opportunity that is almost for the masculine weighing your options right now, because you realize that to be able to explain something to feminine, you're going to have to be very emotionally vulnerable. And that level of emotional vulnerability immediately brings fear, because this is masculine in separation, feeling the anxiety about what will happen if you're truly open your heart to the feminine, if you're truly open and honest, if this is a feminine that will truly be able to receive that, or if this is a feminine that's almost like going to effectively put you in a state or space of feeling to a certain extent like it's pushing them further away. Continuing to get clarification on masculine and feminine coming into divine union, that level of openness is exactly why you're moving into the divine union frequency. Because again, this isn't pretending that you don't have feelings for other people. This isn't pretending that even as you're making the conscious choice to prioritize the other, that everyone else falls to the wayside. It is the ability to discern and to recognize that that balancing of the energy around you is also something that is not necessarily completely abandoned, but something that you're both mutually doing for the sake of the other. That clarity that you're bringing towards things right now, it is deepening the divine union frequency, because it is that moment that you feel like you're doing it together. You don't need to pretend for each other. You just need to open up further. And we see here for the energy in the divine union frequency, the only challenge is, again, articulating and amplifying in this way. It does feel like it's vulnerable work, because there's that moment of wondering how the other will navigate that further opening up. But we see here that for the energy that's moving further into the divine union frequency, the ability to hold space for the other person's sensitive areas is not creating a space of departure or abandonment. It's showing the proving ground of someone saying, let me show you how much I can hold. Let me show you how adaptable I am. Masculine and feminine coming into the divine union frequency, this is something that you already do for one another. Having that moment, having those points of observation, holding space, and realizing the discernment, the value of discernment, that clarity is helping even now to almost like create that space of protectiveness that you may potentially be feeling in relation to circumstances or situations, but it's almost creating that deepening sense of clarity of the self as you do so. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our 9 of Wands in combination with our 7 of Pentacles in its reversal. We've got here Ace of Pentacles. Let me surprise you. Let me show you just how much I can do. Masculine and feminine energy and divine union frequency right now, what we're effectively seeing is that moment that, again, it's not necessarily that point of having to necessarily feel that sense of anxiety, but almost articulating upon those points of anxiety is almost how you are healing things, because this is masculine and feminine articulating on their anxiety points so that the other can step in to put that energy there. This is the energy in the divine union saying, show me where you are weak so I can make that place stronger. Masculine and feminine right now coming into divine union, you are learning to do this for one another. And you're feeling the anxiety point and recognizing that some of the energy around you is shifting, because they see the fact that effectively your own prioritization point is becoming focused towards a certain energy. It's towards the divine union. And that point of accountability and understanding and feeling the ripple effect of the divine union forming right now is something that you're both navigating together. But again, it isn't effectively causing you to pull back. It's almost causing you to continue even more so, because you're seeing how much change the other energy is willing to experience to allow the formation of the divine union to come into being. And it's not something that just feels like it's coincidental or easy. It's almost, again, each energy expressing the hurdles of moving in that way that are potentially causing, that is re-amplifying and focusing the commitment to doing so. Masculine and feminine in separation right now. This is why we see feminine is articulating to masculine what they see. Feminine articulating to masculine what they see is not feminine trying to reject a masculine. Feminine is trying to give masculine an opportunity to change it or to clarify. This is feminine almost saying to masculine, if I've said something that is wrong, please correct me. If I'm misseeing something, please show it to me in a way that I can accept it. Because this is feminine energy that's almost, again, at a point where they're feeling a point about potentially cutting off with masculine right now if they don't see a change. Because this is feminine almost opening up to masculine and saying, I'm not saying these things to you because I don't hope that there can be some kind of solution here. I'm saying these things that are triggering right now as like a last ditch effort, as like hoping that by articulating these things that I know are potentially difficult or know are potentially going to create conflict between us, that you will be able to effectively bring forward and provide what we need in order to heal here. Masculine in that point of separation right now, receiving this from a feminine right now, receiving a point from the feminine and recognizing that this feminine energy that you're moving with right now is at a point where they're almost asking you or demanding to come forward in this way. I think you're recognizing now this isn't the feminine energy trying to demand a deepening commitment with you right now. This isn't a feminine energy that's demanding that you give them something that you might not have the power to provide them right now. This is masculine almost feeling that weight of seeing a feminine that's saying, please Just tell me what it is that you want. But for masculine, that anxiety point is potentially arising right now because there's that potential fear of, again, if you're even articulating to some feminine energy right now that you don't want divine union, this is that feeling or that fear that you might lose any contact with that feminine energy right now. Because again, there may be a feeling right now of feeling the intensity of a separation point between a feminine and knowing what a feminine actually aspires to right now versus what you may feel ready to commit to right now. But again, that ability to be open about that ability to at least validate where you are is actually the pathway to healing right now that you're recognizing, but it's requiring you to be vulnerable because you're realizing that the only thing that's really going to cut you off from this feminine energy is if you don't articulate on that. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Queen of Cups in its reversal and our Moon card in its reversal. Clarification coming through right now with our Nine of Swords. This is feminine energy that's going to say the hard thing first today. This is feminine energy willing to rip a Band-Aid off. This is feminine energy coming into a point of emotional overwhelm and saying something, not even for the sake of the energy, but this is feminine energy coming to truth around something right now for validation. Anything feminine saying right now is feminine almost observing a hard thing, not to have it denied, but to potentially have it validated. And this is why we see for the energy and separation right now, making sure that you don't invalidate what the feminine's putting towards you right now, masculine, is literally going to make and break something right now. Because if you try to invalidate the authentic experience that the feminine is trying to communicate to you with, that's almost going to immediately lead to complete and total separation. Because this is a feminine energy that is already feeling a crisis point in feeling the weight of experiencing and seeing something that your actions are doing that your words might not be feeling invalidation with. So we see here that this is why the feminine energy is opening up right now on their own personal pain and experiences, because this is a feminine energy that's trying to articulate to you and show you something about the way you're moving is hurting the feminine energy. And this is why we see that a lot of feminine energy is potentially ready to cut things off right now. Because if this is a masculine energy, that feminine is literally saying to masculine energy in separation, the way you are moving is hurting me. The way you are moving is causing me pain. And this is a masculine energy that is not prioritizing trying to remove that pain from the feminine. Then this is feminine that, again, regardless of their feelings and their over emotion for that masculine, is looking to effectively continue separation with that masculine, because this is now a feminine that potentially feels not only that the masculine is moving in a way that doesn't feel authentic what the masculine is asking for, but also a masculine energy that isn't prioritizing easing the pain of the feminine that is experiencing it. Masculine, you may be seeing this right now around a feminine energy that's almost articulating to you, if they're opening up in this way, the fact that something that you're doing or the way that you're moving is causing the feminine energy ongoing pain. Masculine energy right now, this may be a moment that you are potentially reflecting feminine in separation right now, because we're seeing that for a lot of masculine energy right now, that observation point of having reached a point in connection with the feminine where you are actually hurting them is now kind of creating a space or place that, again, it may be feeling even harder to be able to be open with the feminine as to what you want right now, because it's a fear or the anxiety of creating further hurt on the back of that feminine that's already articulating to you that they are in pain. Masculine energy and separation right now, this is why we see this could be feeling somewhat emotionally overwhelming, because if you have a lot of care for this feminine energy that's articulating this way, it is that feeling that's almost feeling like a lot of personal responsibility and weight that you're potentially feeling, and seeing a feminine that is opening up in this way. But again, potentially having that moment in trying to be careful about not hurting that feminine more, you have to be very careful right now. Because more than anything, this is a feminine energy that's not asking you to alleviate the pain that they're feeling. This is a feminine energy that is asking you to be honest. And that is what we're effectively seeing is requiring you to effectively have to do some of this hard work of opening up vulnerably and matching the feminine energy's own ability of being emotionally vulnerable and honest at this time. That is what the feminine energy is asking for. They're not asking you to take their pain away by making things easier. They are challenging you to do the hard thing and meet them in that same vibration. Masculine and feminine energy in divine union right now, or coming into divine union, you are doing this for one another. You are matching each other in that modality, even if it is hard, but you are mutually carrying the pain for each other, which again is that point of catharsis, because you're not moving in this way because it's easy. You're moving in this way because you're able to face the difficult things because you know that you're not doing it alone. Masculine and feminine energy almost opening up to each other deeper about these internal hurts, about how hard it is potentially to move away from some things right now as you move deeper into union. But it isn't creating a space right now of tearing you apart. It's almost creating a space that you are sharing that grief, you're sharing that burden together. Masculine and feminine, you've been doing this for some time. If you're in the divine union frequency, that feeling right now, even now, of getting to know each other more, opening up more, it doesn't go away. It just constantly creates more alignment, because the more you get to know one another, it feels like you're always going through this journey of healing. And even through that, this is almost feeling like that stop-start, because you're being very mindful of, again, your own journey and how it impacts the other, to make sure that you're being very mindful of carrying each other's weight and making sure that you're not necessarily harming one another as you continue forward in this internal exploration. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Moon card in its reversal and our Ace of Pentacles in its reversal. Six of Swords. Again, the ability right now to hold pain for each other. Masculine and feminine energy and divine union, almost saying to one another, show me where it hurts so that I can carry that burden with you. Show me what I can do. Almost again, the divine union energy, this isn't necessarily spaces or places that you're potentially causing this for each other. It's really just amplifying that sense of support for one another as you come into that deeper understanding of the self. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now, the observation of the energy around you and how it is impacting, or how it's moving away from you, just from the divine union forming. It's creating grief. It's creating clarity. It's helping you see things in a way that you haven't seen them. Because again, it isn't the fact that you've necessarily tried to change anything around you so much as it is just you kind of changing your own priorities is having an impact. But we see here that you're navigating that together, and the ability not to pretend that that isn't happening, but to almost be open about it, is allowing you to deepen your own connection into that vibration. Masculine and feminine in separation right now, this ability in terms of telling one another how you are hurting. Feminine saying to masculine, like, I am at a moment, I am telling you these things not because I want to walk away from something, but because I hope that we can change something, is creating a space or place that does feel like there's something here. It is an opportunity, as a hand that the feminine's extending to the masculine, but it is a moment that is vital for masculine to be able to come forward with a point of honesty, even if that honesty isn't necessarily what the feminine wants to hear, because we see here that this is not a feminine energy that is looking for a masculine that's going to say the thing that the feminine wants to hear. This is that's almost going to create a space. If this is a feminine that feels like the masculine's only giving them what they want to hear, this is a feminine energy that's almost utilizing that as further amplification of completely ending or severing a separation right now, because this is a feminine that's saying your words do not match. You're even saying now, in terms of not out validating what I'm experiencing, just trying to deny it, not clarifying. That's just further confirmation to the feminine of the feeling that masculine isn't truly being authentic to them. Masculine, you may be seeing this on the part of a feminine right now that's articulating this to you, and you may be feeling called forth right now to be open to the feminine in this way, but also feeling the anxiety point in terms of what that will cause. But even realizing right now that you're currently in separation due to some of this, may be feeling like you're similarly reflecting the feminine in this moment, and realizing that this is an opportunity that's being extended. And there's something that's starting to feel a little bit like make or break here as it relates to how well and how able you are to be emotionally vulnerable to the feminine. Final card for today's spread. Heavy energy today between our 9 of Swords and our 6 of Swords. One card to clarify, please. Clarification. Page of Wands. Again, one of the things that we're seeing here that's so important is the fact that there's the observation here around masculine and feminine energy that are coming in, that are in separation. This is that moment of looking and having a point of observation that feels like it's a challenge point, because it's the energy saying, I'm not asking you to change who you are or what you are. I'm asking you to confirm what I see. Masculine, there's this moment right now that may be feeling like, again, having to articulate to feminine your own personal limitation right now may be feeling so triggering, because again, it is that point of clarity that feminine is asking for you right now that may be triggering your own inner child wound or fear of abandonment if you are emotionally vulnerable and open. Feminine, you may be seeing this on the part of a masculine, and again, almost trying to amplify to a masculine, saying, I don't want you to say something to me for the sake of making me feel better. I need you to be honest with yourself. Is almost that moment that we're seeing here, that feminine saying, I need you to show me that you can do that. I need you to show me that you're not going to basically have me live in a fantasy world for the sake of trying to keep me happy instead of letting us experience things together. This is feminine almost saying to masculine, I need you to show me this so that I can see the fact that you're doing this work and healing your inner child wound and not letting your fear of abandonment keep us from being able to come into divine union. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now, this recognition of energy that is potentially pulling away from you right now, even potentially offers or opportunities to karmically heal that suddenly feel like we're conditional on the divine union not forming, is almost amplifying right now for masculine and feminine what feels like it is productive or what feels like it needs to be moved away from as you move into divine union. But again, we see here that for masculine and feminine energy experiencing this right now, that ability to hold weight for each other as it happens, to be open, to be expressive, is what's almost deepening the connection into divine union, because again, it's almost allowing you to express your inner child wounds of abandonment to one another while also proceeding forward, getting that as point of like mutual stability. Masculine and feminine in separation, in divine union right now. This is that moment that may feel very triggering, because you're getting to the heart of a lot of your inner child wounds right now. And the deeper that you get to know one another, it's like more of that inner child wound is becoming more and more elusive to navigate. But again, we see here to a certain extent that you're almost focusing on your ability to continue to try to heal it, even as it becomes more difficult. Because again, this is that observation right now that's almost amplifying your own, like, what feels like it is within you to heal versus what you feel like you just need to carry forward. And even now we see that that's a very overwhelming space, because even when we have these inner child wounds, sometimes there's a point that we see something that we can't necessarily heal immediately. We just need to hold space for, but recognizing and valuing each other's wounds in this way is what is amplifying the good. And being able to hold space for that and nurture that and protect that for one another is almost deepening your connection. Bottom of the deck on this reading right now is Page of Cups. Masculine and feminine energy right now in divine union. It's more of that feeling of wanting to get back to work on something here. Again, it's not that feeling. It's that feeling or desire of wanting to come into a point of easement right now, because a lot of this energy that you've been focused on right now, divine union, feels like you haven't had a lot of time to just kind of relax, to enjoy things to a certain extent. So we see here that this is almost feeling like a point of like either having to play catch up in terms of having something that feels like you were going into a state of easement on and now trying to, pick back up on something. But navigating this right now is almost like creating that space for the energy and divine union that feels a little challenging, because it doesn't necessarily feel like it's fun. It feels like something fun has become triggering. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now, there's that observation point of feeling frustration around, again, some of this felt like it was harmless that then felt like it was becoming very harmful. So even now for the divine union energy, there's a trepidation in terms of feeling some of the energy around the divine union, because again, a big lesson that just effectively happened right now for energy coming into the divine union was the sense of someone trying to come forward and it felt like it was harmless, but realizing that it wasn't. So even now that sense of trepidation is very highly there. The energy and separation, this is feminine's fear of the masculine. This is the fear a feminine has of a masculine that only is potentially able to follow their own pleasure and not willing to relinquish that by prioritizing the needs of the divine union right now. So feminine is almost feeling a little bit of cynicism if masculine's trying to come towards feminine right now, because feminine is looking for consistency, not delight. Masculine, you may be feeling that there's something about the way the feminine's portraying you right now that makes you feel somewhat foolish. Like, again, that moment of feminine almost articulating to you something that they see that's almost feminine, saying, like, in a way they're trying to deprioritize you because they don't necessarily feel like you are ready or you're willing to come into divine union, is something that you're potentially facing. Because, again, it feels somewhat triggering to be portrayed in that way, even if you feel like you're not necessarily ready for divine union, which is why there's something here that needs to be navigated to a certain extent. Because, again, it's the observation or the opposite of someone saying something that is true, but also like not feeling like, it's like it's true, but it's like you wanting to like articulate on it is like the difference between feeling foolish or not. That is our daily collective read for today. I want to thank you so much for being here and experiencing it. Just a reminder, if you'd like to book a private reading with me, you can book one on my website, graystrega.com. My private readings are done over video. And if you are a subscriber to my TikTok, you can take 10% off any of my services when you pay. Just mention your subscriber ID at the point of payment. Please keep in mind, if you book a private reading with me, it is a 2-step process. You have to book the reading, you have to pay for the reading. Please make sure you do both if you'd like to have that reading. Most importantly, please remember, I will never, ever reach out to you for a private reading. I will never DM you. I will never PM you. I will never slide into your inbox and tell you that I have a very important message that only I can deliver. The only way you can book a reading with me is if you book one on my website. So I encourage you to do it there. I want to thank you guys so much for being here with me today and sharing with me in these messages. And we will